everybody. I'm Amanda Brown, and I am a restorative justice coach at Pomalita Middle School in Ukiah, California. In my previous video, I talked about some of the things that you absolutely need in order for restorative justice to work, being complete buy-in from administration, buy-in from the majority of your staff, that includes teachers and custodians, office workers, nurses, everybody at your school. You also will need a full-time dedicated restorative justice coach that has relationships with staff and students. So moving on from the necessities, once you have those things in place, you will need to begin training your staff and your administration in the restorative justice process. And the first part of the process begins with the dialogue. So we have dialogue that goes that's set dialogue that happens when there is an incident. And the language that we use in the restorative dialogue with our students, and oftentimes we'll first present it to them in the written form so they have an opportunity to fill out their answers to the restorative questions. And then once that's been completed, then they have an opportunity to meet with either a restorative justice coach or restorative justice advocate, which I will talk about later in this series of videos. So the dialogue when there's an incident that happens starts with the questions and the way in which you say them. And the questions, there's 5 questions. The first question is, what happened? The second question is, what were you thinking about at the time? Third question, what have you thought about since? Then we would ask, who's been affected by your actions and how have they been affected? And then when we get to what the real core of restorative justice is, which is, what do you need to do to make things right? Or this is all in a, we would call them like the offender dialogue. But if what they did cause harm, whatever kind of harm it is, what can they do to make things right? And this is the big question that we have. What needs to happen to make things right? Because while we can have a set, what you need and what you need to ask and all of the necessary agreements, there's not really a set, what do you need to do to make things right, beside the apology. And the apology can be in the form of a verbal apology or a written apology. But where a lot of adults really get stuck, and students too, is the punishment or the consequence part of the process. The shift from the regular, normal, how we've done it for so long, punitive versus how we're moving into the restorative process, this is a total mind shift that needs to happen. And so when we get to the part where what needs to happen to make things right, oftentimes it isn't, well, you have detention for a week. I mean, clearly that's the only way that we're going to get through to you, because a lot of kids, that doesn't get through to them. Some kids that works. And this is not a one size fits all. And this doesn't change how you do everything, but it kind of does change how you do everything, because one of those necessary mind shifts that needs to happen is the mind shift from the punitive to the restorative process. So maybe what they need to do to make things right is apologize. And if they said something mean, say something nice. If you destroyed something, you need to somehow replace that. If there's time that's taken away from something, that you're able to repay with time. So this is often the most difficult part of the restorative process for a lot of people to grasp. So people need to come to terms with that. And the mind shift that needs to happen in order for it to work at your school is the what do you need to do to make things right part. So thank you for watching this series of videos, and more to come.